Hello and welcome to the very first session of PayPal's Small Business Bootcamp series. I'm Sarah Davidson, a very long-time customer of PayPal and host of PayPal's The Adaptables podcast. And I'm so thrilled to be back with you guys again for this bootcamp. With the lineup we have in store for you, I feel like I will probably be learning just as much, if not more, than all of you guys. As we all know, the pandemic has had a major impact on small businesses around the world, accelerating the shift to an omnichannel approach and online presence for so many small businesses. But any kind of pivot or adaptation or change can be a bit of an overwhelming experience, of course. So this and the ensuing webinars hope to support all of you on your online journey, whether via your own branded website or your marketplace presence. Before I introduce our wonderful guests for today, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Now to introduce you to our fabulous panel, kicking off with Jonathan, aka Jono Han. He is the head of Channel Partners, Small Business and Marketplaces and Payouts at PayPal, and has led the development of countless innovative solutions to help Australian businesses reimagine their end-to-end digital strategies, from customer experience to mass payment functionality. In this role, Jono has worked with most of Australia's leading brands to help optimise their online presence and engagement with PayPal's network of more than 9.1 million active customers across Australia. Welcome, Jono. Next up, we have Kelly Ava, who is a senior e-commerce professional at Style Runner, a leading retailer for active fashion-conscious women, which I fashion myself to be. Very, very avid customer of Style Runner. Kelly is responsible for driving Style Runner's digital strategy and delivering a best-in-class e-commerce experience. With over 9 years of experience in fashion retail sales and e-commerce, Kelly previously led the digital growth for Platypus Shoes, another leading retailer within Accent Group's portfolio of brands. Her specialities include driving profitable sales and development and execution of strategies in content marketing, CRM, digital marketing, and UX. And last but not least, Stephen Pramudiko. Stephen is an entrepreneur, a passionate tech investor, sits on the board of a couple of disruptive Aussie startups, and strongly believes that the world and our businesses would be in a better place if we all acted a bit more like founders and a bit less like CEOs. His latest venture, me&u, is changing the way we order and pay, and is the story of a community working together to build a brighter future for the hospitality industry and deliver a more social guest experience. me&u is an at-table ordering platform that allows customers to order their food and drinks whilst sitting at their table. Very big fan of this. Customers avoid queuing and experience a full visual menu at their fingertips. For venues, me&u drives revenue as customers spend more when ordering via me&u. It is the perfect blend of hospitality and tech. Welcome to our incredible panel. I realise not everyone can see you guys waving.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys.
So let's kick off with our first question for today. What do you guys think a typical online presence means for SMBs? Maybe Stephen, we can start with you, given you are the tech disruptor of the group.
Yeah, I think an online presence for, I'll put my hospitality hat on for a moment, is clearly, this is an industry that, is as antiquated as it gets, because we're so focused on the in-venue experience, we typically forget, the online presence. So I think, as a hospitality operator, you need to be thinking about a couple of things. Number one is, what are my basic channels in which my customers want to interact with me? So website, mobile platforms, social media channels. And then I think the third component that's sort of arisen pretty significantly over the past few years has been my delivery platform. So, this has been a major disruptor for hospitality, because we've only ever served customers in our venues, and now there's been this significant trend with, with delivery. So, I think, it's getting those platforms right. It's about thinking, through those platforms as though you're a customer, and really making sure that customers can easily interact, engage, and sort of, experience the same type of feelings that they would in venue on your social media or your website platforms.
Yeah, definitely. I think for industries like hospitality, where it has traditionally been so focused on that in-person experience, it's quite overwhelming to learn how to recreate that same feeling, because you still want your customers to feel safe and supported. Jono, do you have anything to add from that perspective about what the online presence means and how to create it?
Yeah, so definitely. So thanks, Sarah, and just take the opportunity to say thank you for having me on the panel. So it's a great honour to sort of be representing PayPal, but also just talking to a lot of the small businesses that support PayPal and take our solutions. So first, that's the first point. In terms of what's typical, I think that's just obviously changing so quickly right now. What I'm seeing, and certainly what PayPal has been seeing, is reflected in a couple of research papers and reports that we do. So on an annual basis, we sort of look to survey a whole bunch of consumers and businesses, and we publish that in a report called the PayPal e-commerce index. And in that, there's some insights that are coming out of that, and so I'll probably be referring to that a fair bit. But what we're sort of seeing is it's not just about being online. You actually have to be good online. That's the difference. Because of the pandemic, everyone's now online. If they weren't online, they're already online now, sort of 18 months in. So I think there's three parts to my answer. It's about catering to the way your customers actually shop. So, we've all sort of experienced it and seen it. You have to now pivot, and I'm going to probably do a count of the number of times that I use that word, but
we should have started a drinking game.
Yeah, I think I already counted two. I've already counted two, but so it's definitely changed. So what we've seen though is consumers are basically telling us they're going to continue to do e-commerce even post-pandemic. I think the number that we've got is like nearly 2 in 5 consumers, if they've only experienced e-commerce today or recently, they're just going to continue post that pandemic. So that's the first point. The second point, I think, is about businesses having to change the way they actually cater to their customers in the way that they collect their purchases. So we obviously can't go to the shops anymore. So click and collect and those types of options are just going to be a part of BAU. And if you're not sort of, getting ready for that or providing that as an option to your customers, you're already falling behind. And I think the stat there is like 37% of our respondents said that they'll make fewer trips to the shops. Now, it should be probably higher than that because we can't actually go to the shops, but obviously that's just reflected in the behaviour and the lockdown that we're all currently in at the moment. And then the third point is this one's gonna probably kill my mum and dad because of being of Asian descent, and cash is definitely being king. 57% of our consumers are saying they don't believe there'll be cash in another decade. So wow. We'll be a cashless society. So it's amazing how people are now sort of looking at that. I can't remember the last time I actually used cash to transact or purchase a product. So that's, there are three things that just are popping out in terms of this research, and we're probably seeing that in our daily lives right now.
I think it's sometimes really useful as well to have those kind of statistics to guide you in terms of what the customer is doing and the shifts they're making. And I know you can actually go and look up that e-commerce index online if anyone would like to go and do some further research. And I think it is great that there are so many businesses who might not have been going to make the move online, but needed to anyway, and now will keep that on after things start to go back to in-person shopping. And it might have given you the push you needed anyway. But I think one of the really overwhelming choices that people face is, it's a lot to invest in your own branded website if you've never been online before. There are a lot of marketplaces available where you can list your products without having to build your own infrastructure. But, there are pros and cons for each side. Do you guys have any thoughts on why some would choose to go the branded website direction or why others would choose to list on marketplaces? Maybe in the case of Style Runner in particular, I know I like to shop in store because the high street store is around the corner from me, but you also create a beautiful experience online where it feels aesthetically the same and you're really embraced with the same language. Kelly, do you have any thoughts on why you guys chose to go that way as opposed to on a marketplace?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're obviously a fashion retailer, you know, catered to women. And we really pride ourselves, I think, on our brand and what we stand for, you know, not just the product that we sell. So having our own branded website has just given us that platform, that opportunity to really, you know, show our content, speak our voice, reach to our customer, and have that sort of one-to-one connection and that first interaction with them. Yeah, as I mentioned, as a fashion retailer, we find that really important. And these days, especially now where we don't have that opportunity to go into store and engage, you know, with the team in store, or have that sort of opportune experience to get to know the brand and understand the values. You know, we really kind of hone in on that through our own branded website and see the importance in that. I think for us as well, having our own branded website is that sort of starting point of growth and building the relationships with the customers, where, you know, we're not only benefiting by having them on our website, it actually sort of is the outlet into multiple different channels. You know, that's where we can then get them sort of engaged on our Instagram, get them signing up to our database, and that starts to build, you know, multiple channels such as email and social.
Sarah,
Yeah,
can I just add to that? Like, I think this is just a fascinating topic, and you know, the whole direct versus aggregator has definitely been a very sensitive topic of conversation in the hospitality industry, because I think you know you've had the emergence of you know, big powerful brands like Uber and Deliveroo and me&u over the past couple of years. You know, and I think what we've found is that you kind of need to be where the customer is. In the days of sort of picking and choosing it, you know, it's really difficult, because ultimately the industry is really struggling, and you're desperate for money and you're desperate for orders and transactions. So I think what we've seen over the past couple of years is, you know, the emergence of marketplaces and aggregators, and almost the necessity to be on those platforms, almost at the peril of the industry, because, you know, they would prefer not to, but they need to be on there. So I think that's the first bit, is that there's been a significant shift towards aggregators, and ultimately a place where consumers just want to make easy transactions and have lots of choice. I think the absolute critical thing, and I think Kelly touched on this really nicely, is you know, what we've got to do is we've got to try and acquire the customer through those channels, and then we've got to deliver a beautiful, branded, personalized experience and try and convert that customer to your own channels. So in this particular instance, you know, the delivery guy is charging 30%. It's not sustainable, it's not healthy. So, you know, for a small mum and dad operator, or, you know, a restaurant, the absolute key is to try and deliver a great branded experience, collect data, and then try and channel shift them to your own channels from that point forward.
That's such a great point, Stephen. I think I pitched the question more as if it was a mutually exclusive choice, but for a lot of venues, I mean, in hospitality, if you're on me&u, you don't not have your own website. You still have your own website, and you might still have your own ordering system on there, but the acquisition of customer in that industry in particular is really important. And that's why it's important for all small businesses to remember that the feedback that you get will depend on your specific industry and your specific business size and how big your audience and your database already is. And I often say to people, you know, if you're a dentist who is spread by word of mouth and you're very specific to one suburb, you don't need to spend $1 million on Facebook advertising or have 100,000 followers all over the world. It just doesn't line up to what you're trying to achieve. So sometimes I think in e-commerce we go, oh, this is really important and that's really important and the fonts are really important. But for some businesses, it's not important, and you don't need to, you know, it's a very tailored approach. Jono, do you have any feedback from the back end perspective where you're seeing, you know, customer acquisitions and payments from both sides? Do you have anything to add to what the others have said?
Yeah, so I think the answer for me there, I think, is if you can, I guess, afford to and have the time and resources to diversify. So to do all of that. So, you know, Stephen's point, like this shift to marketplaces has just really taken off in the last couple of years, and we're seeing that. You know, I'll use an analogy that we probably all very probably can relate to is mobile commerce versus desktop commerce. So obviously pre-pandemic, right up until 2019, we just continually saw a massive increase of commerce taking place on mobile devices. So that's obviously phones and tablets. But the pandemic hit, and that shifted immediately. So people are locked away in their houses. We're not commuting to work. And now we're actually seeing for the first time that index of mobile usage actually dropped about 20% in 1 year. So, you know, when everyone was telling everyone, be mobile optimized, make sure you've got a mobile solution, get apps, all this sort of stuff. But that changed in a moment's notice. And now businesses are seeing desktop and the way that they present information on desktop devices is now probably more important, because that's making a surge back as a result of the pandemic. So I guess the message there is just, you know, be everywhere where you can be within obviously reason, but and that will sort of just cover your bases if things shift, and things shift quickly.
Jono, is that an anti-pivot?
Or is it an omni-pivot? It's an omni-pivot.
That's an omni-pivot, yeah. It's
a multi-directional pivot.
That's a real Ross pivot. Multiple pivots.
Does that take my tally down one?
Oh, did you? Yeah, you just earned the right to add another one to your tally.
Yeah.
So then when, you know, an SMB is looking at their online presence in whatever medium they've, you know, chosen, their own website or an aggregator, what main things should they be considering? You know, what are their options? What could they be looking at to think about enhancing efficiency, and also those kind of like ancillary things like the power of reviews, and then pop-ups versus not pop-ups, and using the data you collect to promote your online presence. Like, it doesn't all have to just be putting together the presentation of the website. It can be all the other things as well. So Stephen, what have you guys done, for example, that you would recommend to other SMBs?
Yeah, so I think this is fascinating for us because, you know, as you said, Sarah, we're a in-venue mobile ordering experience. And I think, you know, the two big things that we were trying to disrupt is, you know, the 15-minute queue to order a beer at Opera Bar on a Friday night. You know, it's not great. Nobody loves it, you know. And I think the second big bit we're trying to disrupt is the 100-year-old menu that just sits on the table. It's not personalized. It doesn't know who you are, and it's not designed to upsell. So I think, you know, when we kind of crafted me&u, it was all about how do we use technology to disrupt that, so that Sarah can sit at her table, push a button, and get a cocktail to the table. And, you know, if you do that, then does it elevate the experience, and does it mean that you walk out happier? So I think that's the lens we looked at it through. And then, you know, when me&u was born, we really sort of set out to disrupt, innovate, and sort of really bring technology into hospitality, probably for the first time in the in-venue experience. I think we've found three massive things that I think have been transformative. I think the first thing that we've absolutely seen is that, and this is not hospitality exclusive, this is across the board. If you remove the friction and the pain points, customers will absolutely spend more. So what we've found is that a customer who would get up and order at the counter versus the customer who would sit there and order on their mobile device, the customer on the mobile phone would order 27.5% more. So because you've now got the art and the psychology and the ability to sort of personalize stuff and simply add upsells. So now when I'm getting my gin and tonic, I'm probably adding the 4 pillars or the Tanqueray rather than just getting the house. So, you know, I think that's one great example. I think the second great example, you know, Jono touched on this a moment ago, but, you know, speed is super important. So you want to get the customer in and out as quickly as possible, because we're such a convenient, rich society. We just don't have time. We want something to be effortless, easy, slick, cool, you know, and in our instance, honestly, I want to be there, you know, picking up or chatting with my family or connecting. I don't want to be there on my phone. So the second thing that we had to do was allow a customer to get in and out of the ordering experience within 35 seconds. And, you know, so, you know, the ability to do mobile payments. So rather than me needing to add my credit card, So I can now push one button and use Apple Pay or Google Pay or PayPal, you know, and we've got 70% of our customers doing that. So I think that's a second great example. And the third great example is the ability to personalize the menu, because we know who you are, we know what you love. So I think they're probably just 3 bits on how we've used tech to really sort of simplify, streamline, and elevate the guest experience in hospitality venues across the planet.
I love how many practical anecdotes you're weaving in to demonstrate your points. And I can totally imagine how me&u started with you sitting at Opera Bar being like, this is ridiculous. I need my gin. I can't get my gin. I have a business idea.
I just didn't know what cocktail you loved, Sarah, so I couldn't go that far. I should have done my research.
I know, ask Lisa.
Yeah.
Guys, just quickly before I move to Kelly to add to this question, we're getting some amazing questions coming through on the Q&A, which we will get to. There's been time set aside for that. So keep your questions coming if you've got anything you want to ask our guests, and we will come back to them while we've got these wonderful minds at our disposal. Obviously, my wonderful mind isn't one of them. Kelly, do you have anything to add to that? Things that, you know, Smbs can look at with their online presence?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from a retail perspective, like not just fashion, but obviously any product you're selling, I think I'm going to go real basic here and say social media, like looking at Facebook and Instagram. I think any retailer, it's so key. It's free, you know, to some extent. And I would say super easy to manage. At the moment, I think something really big that's kind of grown, especially over the last sort of 2 years, is Facebook Shop and Instagram Shop. So now having that ability to, you know, post your content, post beautiful imagery, but then tag a product, you know, with a link that then takes the customer or the consumer directly to that product. I feel like in terms of enhancing efficiency, you know, it's just a seamless way for you to be able to, you know, drive people to your website. And then I think, you know, another thing is really, I guess, just Google. Google becomes your best friend, I think, as any small business that's going online or increasing, their online presence. There are so many free things now within Google as well. So also Google Shop. So now when people search, products appear. And it's, you know, you can add them for free. Obviously, looking at it from a paid perspective is where you can promote them and essentially increase your chances of appearing. But using even something like Google Business, so you have an additional chance of appearing in Google when people are searching sort of words that relate to your business or your products. And I think the third thing for us is actually something that really excites me, because we're working on this project for Starin at the moment, but it's reviews. I feel like I've been talking so much about reviews in the last 2 weeks, and I'm such an advocate at the moment.
I was going to ask you, I'm like, tell us everything.
Honestly, I feel like I think, you know, from reading reviews as a shopper and then now, you know, as a retailer, giving customers an opportunity to leave a review, it's just so crucial to, you know, our business and brand, to just allow customers to feel heard, you know, to allow them to provide feedback instantly with us, and for us to be able to engage back with them. We can, you know, we have that opportunity now to understand our product more, you know, our service better. It allows us to identify ways to improve. And then, you know, from a consumer's perspective, I think it just helps build trust. It helps them, you know, with their decision making. I think it boosts their confidence in what they're doing, which I think now these days as well, everyone, you know, is obviously feeling a little bit on edge, not sure about things. So adding reviews to your products for sure, definitely, I think is going to, I guess, boost, you know, that sort of shopping morale. And again, another added bonus is having reviews on your product pages also helps with ranking in Google. So you're going to then, you know, support that sort of driving awareness of like organic traffic to your site from Google.
Yeah, I think especially given how quickly consumer behaviors and trends are changing, it's amazing how much data you can gather on what they do and how much real time, like it's almost like doing a real time survey at all times of what's working and what isn't, so that you can tweak constantly. You're not running blind trying to serve a customer who's not giving you any data back. So reviews, I think, are enormously important. And as a consumer myself, you don't even notice that subliminally you're going to buy something, and if it's got lots of reviews underneath it, you sort of push to click. Exactly. You're like, oh well, it must be great.
Totally. It's almost like psychological. The more you see, it kind of almost then drives that FOMO, like, oh, well, if they all love it and I've been interested in it, of course I'm going to get it now.
Yeah, totally. I'm such a sucker as a consumer. I'm like, woo! Jono, what about your experience with, you know, marketing and selling across the different channels and all the data talking to each other?
Yeah, so I'll probably just carry on that point from Kelly around the reviews, because we've got really interesting data on that as well. So the first point is, you know, I definitely think that review piece that you're doing is right on the mark, because I think more so post-pandemic, it's the only way to kind of really, you know, get a live feedback or a feedback on the product that you're about to buy. So I think really important, more than ever, really. But even when we surveyed customers about a year ago, 95% of customers said that they actually read reviews. So it's pretty much everyone reading reviews during a transaction. And then almost a third actually use the reviews to inform their decision, their purchasing decision. So super powerful. And then over a quarter said that they actually trust a review over what the actual advertising said. So, you know, you're going to more likely to, you know, trust some random person who put a review on that website over, you know, all the slick advertising that we tend to spend money on as well. So, you know, it's the best way to kind of really getting that sort of advocacy around your customers. So I'll probably underline what Kelly's doing there at Style Runner, because I think that's such an important part of doing e-commerce today. And just really quickly touching on, I think the other point there is around just using data. So you know, Kelly again talked about it with Google and stuff like that, but a lot of the technologies I think that small businesses can use that are out there will do a lot of that sort of data aggregation for them in the back end. So for the end customer, that being the merchant, they're actually getting the benefits of all that data coming into a meaningful way, so that then the businesses can actually use that and pivot their business when needed.
Oh
Sarah,
my gosh.
Can I just latch onto that for 1 sec? Like, I think the whole data and personalization piece is fascinating, and you know, I think for many of us, we kind of you see that as so complicated that we can't get our head around it. You know, I think if you can bring data and personalization together, I think there's magic in that. One of the things that we launched sort of 6 months ago at me&u was, you know, clearly you know, all of us are, as an industry, we're obsessing around, you know, how do we try and get customers to spend more? So, you know, COVID has decimated most businesses. So, you know, if you've got a customer, how do you try and get the average basket size up? So one of the things we did was we married data and personalization, so that on the checkout experience, when I've just ordered 5 beers, we're now going to prompt you, sorry, five cocktails, I should say. We're going to prompt you with some quick sells. Now, those quick sells are using data and AI, looking at the most popular or most likely items you're going to order based on a complicated algorithm, and sort of put that in front of customers on at the very last step of the checkout. Now, when we first did that, we didn't know, you know, if customers were going to jump and latch onto it. But I think what we've absolutely found is that, you know, about 3 to 5% of customers are opting to add, you know, a bucket of fries, some wedges, a pizza right at the end of that journey. Now, you know, that for a business, when you're processing thousands and thousands of orders a day, can have a significant impact. And I think that's just a really simple example of how you can use tools and use data to really sort of make that, monetize it, and ultimately get customers to spend more and you know, help you create a more profitable business at a really difficult time.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I think it can definitely be a very overwhelming landscape to enter into, particularly if you're not a native online user and you haven't, you know, grown up with it. But that is why I think it's so exciting to be doing business right now, because you have that kind of ability that we've never had that before, to be able to customize and personalize and use data aggregation to work out exactly how to serve your customer. That is so exciting. What an amazing time to be around. Do you guys think that because there are some buzz areas where we are putting a lot of energy in, like the visuals and like the touch points with customers and the pop-ups and the visual things, that there are any parts of the online customer experience that we tend to overlook that can be really important? Like cart abandonment is a really big one that I think if you've not known it's a factor, it can have a huge impact on your sales, or forgetting the desktop rather than the mobile, or the mobile rather than the desktop. Like, what are the most common things you're seeing, Stephen? Are there any things you know people are overlooking or that you might have overlooked that you think are important?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, because immediately as a perfectionist, I think, shit, what are the things we're overlooking? But
Nothing.
I think sort of the natural place that we go to when we're thinking about, this stuff, and the things that I think we need to be, obsessed around is, I think as small businesses, we tend to be very focused around building stuff, building a great online presence, building a great digital strategy, great website, great channels. I think often we forget about the more important piece, which is how are we actually going to drive traffic and how we're going to get customers there. So I think that's a really important piece is, let's build something great, but let's be parallel focused around how you're going to drive traffic to the platform. I think that's the first piece. I think the second piece for us is really around the checkout experience, because, as I mentioned before, I think the world increasingly is time poor, convenient rich. So, we've got to make it super easy, super convenient for customers to order and to check out. And, nobody does this better than Amazon. So I think, we've got two particular examples here that, really hit home in a very challenging way. But I think the first piece is when me&u first launched, we were an app. So you need to go to a venue and you have to download an app to get started. And, that's slow, it's cumbersome. And, so we learned the hard way that customers, don't stand between a customer and their cocktail. You had to get in and get out fast. And then I think the second bit in relation to the checkout experience is, if I have to pull out my credit card, and that's going to take me 2 to 3 minutes to add my credit card details, and, that's another significant point of friction. So, obsess around making sure the customer can get in, get out super fast, super easy. And now with all of these one-touch sort of payment methods, 70% of customers don't even need to pull out their wallet. That's just transformed the experience for us. So I think they're the two big bits that I'd say, absolutely don't forget about driving traffic, and absolutely be obsessed around, the customer experience, and in particular the checkout experience.
Yeah, I think you can never underestimate how impatient and demanding the consumer has become. And by the consumer, I mean myself. I cannot believe my attention span and ability to wait, because technology has come so far, is getting smaller and smaller all the time. So that removal of friction points, I think, is really, really important to remember. Kelly, what about you guys at Star Runner? Have you found the same, anything different?
Yeah, totally. I feel like Stephen mentioned, you don't almost want to admit that you do overlook things, but it happens. You get so caught up in, think as a retailer, like, am I hitting my sales targets? Am I like driving profit? Am I doing all of these things that I need to do to trade the business? But you kind of forget that it's actually about the customer, and you want to then, focus on what their needs are as opposed to what your business needs are, or what you might have initially mapped out on your business plan. So I think key areas for us, especially within e-commerce, devices, like definitely looking at what devices they're actually using. I know that, since COVID hit, we obviously certainly saw a little bit of a shift in desktop, but for Star Owner specifically, mobile is definitely our number one device. I think it's over 80% of users are still using mobile throughout the pandemic as well. So it's making sure that, we're constantly looking at what that journey is like. Site speed, definitely, I think is critical. I feel like, now these days, if people are getting more and more impatient, if your website's slow so quickly, to just, move on and find the next place that sells what you're looking for. And I think, Sarah, as you mentioned, just that checkout process, like looking at where people might be dropping off. Within Google Analytics now, which is a great, obviously, tool to be able to see all of these things. You can tag your checkout process and see exactly where they're dropping off. So whether it's, you know, when they've just added something to cart, whether it's when they've started entering their payment details, or whether it's, you know, when they've hit that last point before they're about to place their order. So we actually re-platformed our website, I think October now, last year. Feels like forever ago, but also feels like yesterday. But, you know, we did that, and instantly with our new website, we knew we needed to have a quicker website in general, and we needed to have a more instant checkout process. It was taking too long for customers to be able to actually buy something, and pages were taking way too long to load. And I think within the first week or two of us relaunching, you know, a new website where the checkout was instant, you know, pages were loading instantly, the amount of, I think, positive feedback, you know, internally from our team, but we were able to just see an instant lift in conversion rate, to be able to see, I guess, sales reflect that, like, just, you know, gave us that instant gratification that we knew that's what customers were looking for, and something now that we really tend to, you know, look at quite often just to make sure. And I think another one, which, you know, I would find most retailers probably do overlook because they might just set and forget it, but is really around delivery options and, you know, what the cost of your delivery is. I think, you know, now given that, I guess, consumers can't go in store and shop, they are actually forced to shop online. You want your shipping costs to be competitive. I think it's really important to stay up to date with what your competitors are doing, what they're offering, and ensure that, you know, if you can, or if you have the ability to offer quicker services, you know, you are doing that and you're exploring that option. I think also even offering collection options. We're very lucky that we're able to offer that through our stores, and we can operate them as dark stores through the pandemic, but there are so many options that you can offer collection now through 7-Eleven parcel pickups, through the post office. And usually those services are free. You don't get charged as a business, and then the consumer doesn't get charged either. So it's just offering that element of convenience. And if you can, you know, try and see if you can offer a free shipping threshold. That's something that we do at Star Runner, where, you know, you spend a minimum amount and you get free express shipping. And, you know, whilst I guess the idea of it or the thought of it, hearing it straight away, thinks, oh no, I'm going to be losing money. I think ultimately long term, it actually, you know, it drives your average order value up, and you end up coming out on top and more profitable for it.
Yeah, gosh, there are so many options and things to think about along the way on that path to purchase that influence the consumer that could be so easy not to think about. Jono, from PayPal's perspective, being a really big part of making that path to purchase smoother and quicker and more convenient for the consumer, do you have anything to add to what the other guys have said here?
Yeah, I do. So, I think mobile optimization is well and truly not overlooked anymore. I think Australian business have become really on top of that, and I think both Kelly at Style Runner and Stephen at me&u are probably prime examples of how to do that and do it well. So I guess working at PayPal, we really see that checkout piece, which, you know, has been spoken about, and cart abandonment as a really critical part of the whole experience, right? So you've just invested a whole bunch of money getting people to come to your web store and select products, and if that process isn't slick, as Stephen mentioned, it just leaves a real terrible customer experience taste in your mouth as you sort of finalize your transaction. So the point there, I guess, in terms of the experience of the checkout in particular, we see 2 points there. So there's a definitely customer experience point of view, but a trust component, and making sure that, you know, what I'm about to buy is going to be delivered and I'm going to get it, right? So certainly when this is coming from the other side of the planet, and obviously, you know, we do a lot of work at PayPal to make sure that, you know, our payment method is one that's trusted. And, you know, again, our survey sort of, you know, when we ran that, got some really good numbers around PayPal sort of being, you know, certainly one of the more trusted, or the most trusted brand in Australia when it comes to purchasing payments, you know, purchasing online and also making payments from an e-commerce point of view. And cart abandonment, I think this one's I always sort of conjure up a shopping cart, an image of a shopping cart sort of dropped into some river. But it's an interesting one here, because, you know, our researchers found that about a third of customers abandoned their shopping cart because their preferred payment method was not available. You know, whether it be our method or any other ones that they're using, they just found it too difficult. And that sort of goes into the sort of the second and third and fourth reasons, all being around, you know, the security concerns, you know, the difficulty of payment, so it just took too long, you know, all reasons why people go, you know what, this is too hard, or, you know, the dog's barking at the door, I'm getting distracted, and you never get back to completing that purchase. And then also the, you know, like just making sure that the payment methods available that you prefer, obviously, is super important as well. So that probably covers, I guess, what, you know, our perspective is here at PayPal.
Gosh, there are so many different things to juggle, so many priorities for small businesses to be thinking about. And so I'm not surprised at all that we have had many amazing questions come through, which I'd love to move to. But just quickly before we do, how often, in light of all those different things to be juggling in your mind, how often do you think SMBs should be reviewing and evaluating their online strategy? Like Kelly, you mentioned that you guys have re-platformed. Like, what sparks a decision to do that? Do you guys think it should be a monthly, a 6 monthly, like with how quickly things are moving? Maybe just a quick word or two on that. What kind of time intervals?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's almost like you can't put a time constraint around it realistically now, given what we're in and what I guess the pandemic has done. And I feel like this is my chance to drink and put my hand up and say, you've just got to be willing to pivot and willing to adapt. So I think it's, you know, definitely have your key, I guess, parts to your strategy that you do want to focus on, but be willing to react and be, I guess, focused on what's happening with your customer and what might be affecting them, so that, you know, you have the ability to adapt to it where you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you guys agree? Stephen, would you add anything?
No, I think that's bang on. Like, I think the only bit that is sacred and shouldn't change, and should be one of the bits that we don't forget, is your why and your purpose. Like, I think that's got to be the overarching piece. You know, who are you? What do you stand for? Why you, you know, what is it that your customers are absolutely going to love about you? So I think that's a sacred piece that should hang over the top of any digital or tech piece that we do. And then I think you've got your online, you know, or your digital strategy, you know, that's typically a 12-month plan. And then I think, you know, track, obsessed around the customer data, and then you should be checking in on that, you know, monthly to see how you need to change, evolve, tweak the plan. So I think they're the three bits that we think about is, you know, the why, the plan, and then sort of your check-ins on a, you know, on a very regular basis, at the very least monthly.
Yeah, amazing. Well, let's move to our list of Q&As that we've had submitted for you guys. The first one is from Cynthia, who says, hello, everyone. Thank you for giving this talk. For someone thinking of starting a business, so earlier on in the journey, how can you research and identify your potential customers? Stephen, do you want to start?
Well, I think as a two-time startup guy, I'd say if you're thinking about it, absolutely do it. I think startup is just something that's so special and just a once in a lifetime moment. So take the leap and go for it. You know, it will be a roller coaster ride. In terms of researching your customers, you know, I'd say that it's difficult. Sometimes you just need to get in, feel it, and sort of learn that way. So if it's a, you know, for us in hospitality, you know, if you're opening up a business, you typically, you know, you're walking the area, you're feeling the area, you're observing, you know, who your customers are, you're looking at what cars they're driving, you're looking at this type of stuff they're buying. So I think that's one really good way, is just live it and feel it and sort of be a part of the experience. I think the second way, typically when you think about, you know, a new concept or a new story, is just, I'd say just be open and be agile. And I think I always think about startups that you've got to have a vision and you've got to have a purpose, but know that, you know, that may evolve and sort of tweak along the way. So be locked and loaded on what your dream is and what your vision and what your purpose is, but know that how you're going to get to that end place may well change substantially. So if I think about me&u, you know, its first iteration, it's so different to what we are today. So be strong-willed, be determined, be clear on where you're heading, but be agile enough to sort of pivot and evolve with what your customers are saying and the feedback you're getting from them along on the journey.
I think agile should be added to our pivot list as well. But I think it's so the words keep coming up because they are so important. The ability to, in all areas of your business, really be agile, because your potential customers, what they like, what they need is going to be changing all the time. So keeping flexible is really important. Another question that came up that I think most of us are probably wanting to know the answer to is whether paid advertising is as good as creating your own content, which probably comes up quite often for Star Runner. Kelly, do you have anything to say on this one?
Yes, I laugh. I feel like this is heavily debated all the time.
We could have a whole webinar just on that question.
Yeah, literally. This could be a whole topic for an hour, I think. I mean, short answer, yes, but it really, I think, depends on what your goal is. If you want instant, I think, sales, and like that's what you're really trying to drive, like your trade, like paid advertising can get you that. But I think if you're trying to build your brand, who you are, your brand recognition and your brand credibility, creating your own content and showcasing that, like, is like essentially key as well. Being able to show, who you are, what you stand for, obviously, and creating your own, keeping it internal is definitely, something I think that's very big for your brand. But again, I think it just comes down to what your goal is, establishing what it is that you actually want to achieve, and then, weighing out the pros and cons of each. I think there's probably no real right or wrong answer there. It just, depends what it is that you're willing to achieve.
I think that is something we all fall into a bit as business owners, is forgetting the outcome that you're trying to achieve and just ticking the boxes because you're focusing too far at this end rather than the outcome. You're like, what's the input I need rather than what's the output that I'm trying to get?
Exactly.
There needs to be a connection somewhere along the way.
And I feel like you also then have to be like willing to accept what might come from it as well. So creating your own content and, I guess like pushing that out on your channels or showing that on your website. If you don't see the instant sale, don't feel deflated by that, because it is actually probably, driving a bigger picture of things and contributing to other channels in ways that you won't really see instantly. But, over time, you will see that sort of multi-attribution happen.
Yeah, and that's a really hard thing, is measuring awareness building and brand building rather than just sales, because sales aren't the only thing that helps you eventually grow as a business. What about something we haven't really touched on that much? This is a question from Andrea. Do any of you sell or get leads on LinkedIn, a platform that probably is mentioned less than the social media platforms, but could be equally as important? Has anyone had any experience with that?
I can talk to that. Like effectively, we, when we're trying to talk to, restaurant or hospitality owners across the planet, we see that LinkedIn is a super powerful source of data. So, I think one of the hardest challenges, and if I think about, just anybody launching a new business or or launching into a new market, trying to find the decision makers is probably challenge number one. So we find that LinkedIn is definitely a super powerful, super insightful way to engage and connect. I think you've got to be clear with your proposition, because I think LinkedIn is increasingly becoming full of spam and sort of pollution. So I think you've got to be, you've only got a short amount of space to have an impact. So nail your pitch, get clear with it. And again, sort of, really try and integrate your vision or your purpose into your, couple of lines when you're trying to introduce yourself and trying to generate a lead.
Yeah, really interesting. People are just asking questions that I want to hear the answer to. This is amazing. How do I get more people looking at my website without spending mega dollars on ads, which is the mega dollar question, right? Kelly, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I love it. Definitely the mega dollar question. Look, I think, as I've kind of mentioned earlier, I touched on Facebook and Instagram, obviously, free social media channels. I mean, also probably depending on your, who your target market is, because I guess, you know, I hate to mention it, but we know TikTok's kind of just come in and taken over, especially in the last 12 months as well, which is definitely a platform we're now looking into. And, you know, we're trying to increase our content on so we can get more people to our website. But I would definitely also suggest, if you do have a website, reviewing your SEO. I think making sure that you have content on your website, whether it be written or metadata, which you don't necessarily see on the front end of your website. It's all content that Google can read and Google can pick up, and it just contributes to driving organic traffic to your site. So obviously, as people are searching in Google, you will appear more, you know, having those certain keywords that are relevant to your product and your brand. It will just help you rank higher and, yeah, essentially drive organic traffic to your site, which is what we love because it's free.
Jono, what do you think about, I think you probably have something to say on Google.
Yeah,
Google
look, I think Kelly answered it really well. So I think the review piece and using Google products and, you know, using the technology available to you to kind of do this organically. And as, you know, as per my earlier answer around reviews and how powerful they are, I think, you know, if you're looking to kind of get your brand and your business across out there, and, you know, what better way than your existing customers telling other customers or potential customers that you've got a great product. So, yeah, I really have to echo Kelly's thoughts there.
Sarah, can I just add to that? Like, I think this is fascinating because I think, you know, everyone who's out there listening, they've probably got zero, you know, they've got tiny marketing budgets, right? So I think, you know, the ideas of growing a business, you know, is scary because, you know, you kind of don't have budgets and you don't have marketing. I think, you know, when I think about me and you in particular, for the first 3 years of our life, we didn't have one person in marketing. You know, I think that was an intentional strategy where, you know, our thinking was build an amazing business, build an amazing product, and, you know, get the word of mouth and the love to spread organically. So I think, you know, it's, you know, as startups and small businesses, we often don't have big budgets. That's okay. Then obsess around what you've got, obsess around the product, the experience, and know that if what you're delivering is magical, if what you're delivering is changing people's lives, then word will spread and your business will absolutely grow organically. And that's definitely what we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I definitely think there are countless examples you can look at of businesses like yours that haven't had big marketing budgets or a marketing manager or a marketing director for a while before, and they've still managed to build an amazing presence online. So it's not, I mean, it could help, but it's not the be all and end all of starting a business for sure. Tim asked what social media platforms, speaking about using different integrations and different platforms outside of your own owned platforms, what social media platforms are at the top of the hierarchy for each of your individual businesses and why? Very interesting. Maybe Stephen, do you want to continue on with which ones have been the most valued for you guys?
I think social media I think it's fascinating for us. I think the bit that we absolutely obsess around is the in-venue experience for our customers. So, you know, so I think when we think about social media, it's, you know, where are customers interacting, you know, and I think what we find is customers are in venues, they're taking photos of amazing food and drinks and they're sharing that on Instagram. So, you know, Instagram's clearly sort of a really important channel for our customers, number one. So that's for the end customer, the diners. When we think about sort of B2B growth and how we're growing the brand, then we tend to be using LinkedIn as our major sort of source of leads and traffic. But yeah, you know, Instagram's got a very special place to play in food. And I think I read something recently that the second most searched, you know, topic on Google and Instagram was food, right? So food porn's real. And, you know, customers love taking photos, they love sharing them. So, you know, I think at me&u, we believe that, you know, there's a really beautiful place for us to play, sort of integrated into that social experience.
Yeah, food porn is definitely real. Athleisure porn is also real in my books. Kelly, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've said it a few times, but Instagram for us, I mean, it's huge. It's our number one I guess, social media tool by far. If you're not following us, follow us. But I mean, it's crazy to see the influence, I guess, a picture or a video can have, you know, on sales for us. There are days where we might see this random shoe, all of a sudden we've sold however many units, it's at the top of our sellers, and we're like, where did this come from? Like, that's, you know, and we're like, oh, it was posted on Instagram that day. And then we're like, yeah, okay. So I think, yeah, don't underestimate the power of it. But obviously, you know, it's not just about the product, it's also about us being able to share who we are. I think even just like showcasing behind the scenes, people we work with, a lot of influencers and people that we're working with on Instagram as well that can advocate for our brand. Yeah, it's just a key tool for us in terms of social media. And as I mentioned before, now dabbling in TikTok, looking at what we can do to use that as a tool to really, I guess, showcase more like more of that organic content, not necessarily staged campaign creative videos, looking at trends, being able to be a bit silly and, you know, jump on TikTok videos and post them for us as well.
I did not need any more excuses to spend more time on social media, but thank you guys. That's just totally vindicated me. A very last question just for all of you. What do you think is the most important thing for business owners to know right now? Jono, do you have a parting word?
Yeah, look, the future's here. It's come quickly. No, seriously, like it's, you know, we were talking about this stuff for years and now it's happening. It's happening really quickly, so we got to do it now. So if you guys want to just take all the stuff, the good stuff that some of these guys have been talking about in terms of the experiences, go away. If you can implement even half of it, I'm sure that will make your business successful. So you know, this is not futuristic, you know, maybe stuff might happen. This is happening today. So, you know, that's probably my parting word.
Stephen?
Sarah, I think you started it earlier. You said it's an amazing time to be in tech. And I think it's an amazing but daunting time to be alive. And I think if you can use tech to disrupt, to change, to evolve, I think that's super exciting. So I think, you know, the parting bit of advice that I would give would be, number one, you know, yes, tech's amazing and digital is transformative. Make sure that's layered with a crystal clear purpose and why you exist. Number one. I think the second piece is, you know, startups for me come down to three critical ingredients. Number one is, do you have a good idea? Is it the right time? But third and most importantly, do you have an exceptional bunch of people around you? And I think often we can get caught up in one and two and forget the most important bit, which is the third. So I think that is critical. The third bit is around, you know, this is a failure of most startups, that we try and do everything. I would, you know, highly recommend finding your product market fit and just being absolutely laser obsessed around that. And I think the final bit, which is probably what Jono was talking about, is just breathe, pause. You know, this COVID pandemic period that we're in will pass. And so just, you know, just let it ride out. And, you know, I'd encourage everyone to just use tech as a way to make sure that, you know, when we are on the other side, our industries, our businesses, our planet is a bit better because of what we've done through this period.
Yeah, beautiful. I've loved through this talk how you've answered every question, starting with, I find this really fascinating. Like, you're so enthusiastic about what a time it is to be alive, and it's infectious. It's been lovely. Kelly, any parting words from you?
Yeah, I feel like Stephen touched on it earlier, but I mean, remember why you started, remember your purpose. I think like it came from a passion. So it's, you know, really easy, I think, to forget that when you're caught up in, I guess, everything, whether it's pandemic or business related. I think just honing in on that fire inside of you and where the passion grew and where it started from. And I think secondly is that the support is out there. So whether it's, you know, a session like this, which is great, like people can, you know, jump on and listen to other insights and other businesses and other professionals in the industry. I think it's really important to, you know, you are unsure, do that research and look for the support, because it's definitely there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. You have been so wise, insightful, so many practical tips shared, and really, really reassuring at a time when I definitely needed to see your smiling faces today. And I hope our audience has taken away as much as I have. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom. Thank you guys all for your amazing questions. There were way too many to answer today, but the very good news is that we will get to them all, and some of our panelists will hopefully be able to help us answer them all for you, and we'll put them in a blog post so that you can still get your questions answered. Really, really appreciate you all participating so enthusiastically. If you did come in halfway, or you want to come back to this session and refer back to it, it was so dense with information, I definitely will be. It will be available on demand, along with some handy tools on PayPal's website. As Kelly mentioned, there is always support there, and so very grateful that PayPal is offering so much for us. Watch this space and do join us for the next upcoming session on the 23rd of September. I will be back then. It is such a privilege to have hosted you guys today, so thank you all so much for coming.